That's exactly what it is. And I feel that and I want that and I love that. But it also comes from, being disrespected, you know what I mean? Not feeling like I ever got my just due respects. I mean,
in life?
In life in general, you know what I mean? I was never Mexican enough. But then when I would go to Mexico, they call me a pocho, which literally means like you're an outsider.
But the weird thing is you grew up in a Mexican culture.
Correct. But then I go to Honduras and they're like, you're Mexican. No, I'm not. Fuck. Are you serious? And so I've never felt like I've ever got, the respect. Even in stand-up comedy, I've gotten the accolades.
Right.
I've got the money.
Yeah.
I've had the TV show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've had movies.
Yeah.
But I don't have the respect. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And when that happens and you want it, or you at least would love a moment like that, you know what I mean? It just, it digs at you. And I'm not the type of person to go up on stage and complain or whine about it.
But I've also noticed that, what happened is, you got called out publicly. And, by Joe Rogan. And it's weird, Carlos, because I actually addressed this.
Right.
In writing. Right. And just last week, I talked about it on a radio show. And I talk about you and I talk about him, about Rogan.
Right.
And in my mind, and this is from a guy, I used to be the guy that used to go up to comics and go, I think that's so-and-so's bit. I think that's so-and-so's. I was that guy. And then I started to realize as time went on that, look, a lot of bits, anyone can do. Right. There's only so much reality to draw from.
Right.
Now, and then it became my mind that, like, if someone takes my bit, that I know is mine, then I go talk to that guy. Right. And I say, that's my bit. Now, we need to address this because, I want to give you an opportunity to explain this because I watched that movie, I Am Comic, and I saw in your eyes, you were like, fuck yeah, I did it. Right. But I also saw the pain and now I talk to you about this and this has got to be killing you. Well, let's clear it up. I mean, what happened?
So here's what happened. I'm at the...
You're telling me the truth?
Going back. No, seriously, going back, he was a buddy of mine.
Well, let's talk. We can talk. Right. Okay.
And I'll
you
set
talk
it
about
up.
You and Rogan, and then we'll talk about the stealing.
But all of it.
Okay.
A long time ago. A long time ago.
What year? I mean, you're not talking
probably 88.
Okay.
88.
Yeah.
There was a comedian and we were talking about. I had this bit about G.I. Joe, and how there's no Mexican G.I. Joe dolls, and he was talking to me about a bit that he was thinking about there's no Barbie dolls.
Is it Freddie?
No.
Who was it?
Carlos Oscar.
Okay.
So, from that conversation, I went, wow, that's a funny idea. So, the next night, I went to a club and did my bit and incorporated the things that he was talking about. But he's a comedian.
Right.
And he was talking about a bit that he wanted to do. So, he showed up. I didn't know he was going to show up. Not that but whatever. I did the bit and I got off stage and I was like, hey, did you see that? And he looked at me and he went, that's the bit I told you I was going to do. And I looked in his eyes and I saw this like I raped him.
Yeah.
Literally. And I was like, oh shit. But we were just like,
going back.
There were flowing words.
Sure. Yeah.
And he was like, no, but that's my bit.
Yeah.
And from that point on, whenever somebody would come up to me, like at the Comedy Store, I would hear, hey man, Eddie Griffin's pissed at you because, he said that you did a bit of his. I would walk up to Eddie and go, hey Eddie, they said that there was a bit that I do that you did, or Mooney, hey Mooney, somebody said that you do this bit and I do this bit. This is what I do. Cause I know you're not going to watch me. I know Mooney's not going to sit down and watch any other comic. So I'm like, this is my bit. What's your bit? Oh, brother, it's cool. You know what I mean? So I always addressed that.
And everybody,
issue.
And the weird thing about the Comedy Store is everybody, there's about 9 or 10 guys a night doing roughly the same subject matter.
Correct.
I mean, if you're doing topical things, which, that's why I try not to anymore.
Right.
I'm just going to
You're going to run into it.
Philosopher.
Right.
Okay. So you usually
So this kind of gets perpetrated. Mm-hmm. Partly, I think, because I didn't drink and I didn't smoke. Mm-hmm. So I've never been in that fraternity of comedians.
Right.
Because I never hung out in the back while they're doing all that stuff.
Right.
And I never engaged in talking shit about the comics, which is such a big ritual and rite of passage for young comedians. It seems to me, like from the outside
talking
looking
shit?
in, when they're young, you know what I mean? Young comics just sit there and talk shit about, oh, that guy's not funny, and that guy, and I hear that. Sure. I was never in that fraternity because
I still do it.
Yeah, I can't.
I'm starting not to.
Yeah, I can't.
Because that comes from fear too.
Well, my thing is, look, I grew up where Mexicans talk shit about white people.
Yeah.
And 99.99% of all the Mexicans killed are killed by Mexicans.
Yeah.
So I just never understood that.
So you were never a player here.
So I never did that. Okay. Even to this day,
right.
The worst thing that you can hear of me on a radio station is somebody asked me, why do you think Joe is doing this? Jealousy? And I said, maybe. That's like the worst thing I've ever said. So this reputation is kind of lingering since the beginning of my career, but it never just went anywhere.
Yeah.
Then I wrote a Taco Bell joke, and it was the most obvious fucking joke of all time. It was when they created the enchilada, and it was basically, what did they get, an enchilada to fuck a burrito?
Yeah.
It wrote itself.
Yeah.
It literally wrote itself.
Well, that's actually probably what they meant.
That's exactly what they meant. It's a mix of both.
Yeah.
So I did a joke, and then George Lopez came up to me, and this was the biggest mistake of my career.
Yeah.
And I can now say that was ego driven, and it was a lot of fear. But he came up to me and he's like, you know, that's my joke. And I was like, bro, it's a Taco Bell joke. You can't be a Latino and claim Taco Bell as your subject. You just can't.
Yeah.
And he was like, that's my joke. Now, today, I would have looked at George and said, you know what, bro? You've been doing it longer than I have. Out of respect, go ahead, keep the joke.
Yeah.
But I was a young comic. I didn't know that I was going to write anything funnier than that. I mean, at that point, every funny joke...
You were going to fight for the enchilada.
Fuck yeah, man. That's a great joke. What are you talking about? That's the one that's going to put me on HBO. Fuck you. You know what I mean? That was my attitude. And so I was like, you know what? You're crazy, man. You have a problem.
But at this juncture, I'd like to point out that, if within a community, an ethnic community, even within the black community, that there are shared premises. Now, I'm not apologizing for anybody, but part of this discussion that I'm having with you has to do with the fact that there's a difference between original jokes and relatively easy jokes made from a certain ethnic angle.
I agree. I completely agree. And so that got perpetrated,
stole from Lopez.
Put it a little bit more.
Right.
Kind of, he wasn't on the radar as much, you know what I mean? But it just brought it up to another level. But now you were the
guy that stole from George Lopez, and you were a reputed thief at the Comedy Store. So what you're talking about now, and this is just coming off you also, interestingly, at the beginning of your career,
very early.
But knowing you were funny at the very beginning,
right.
You said, well, I'm going to get a joke book.
Right.
Now, I think what's interesting is that we're discussing, you can call them hack or you can call them stock, but these are topics that are out there, and a lot of comics do them. So your approach as the comic that you are saying, well, I know that topic's out there, but this is my angle.
Right.
Okay.
And I've never had a problem with being called a hack or that I do stock jokes. That I've never had an issue with because, like you said, it's different when you grow up. I think if I was a comic that had grown up in a small town and I was the only one of three comedians, I think I would have been a lot more I had a better perspective or a different perspective on material because it would have been just like three of us. So I would have been like, oh, come on, man. It's just, it's just Mark, me, and Eric. I'm not going to do your joke, bro. Right. I mean, we're the only three. But I will say that anytime anybody's ever said, especially before all this bullshit, hey, that guy said, or you took my, I addressed it and I dropped it or I changed it, but I never said, fuck you. I always addressed it. No, because even Lopez about a year or two after, and this is the story that he says that he punched me in the face or some shit. I was having dinner at the Gaucho Grill that used to exist across the street from the Improv. From the Laugh Factory. I look up and his name is there. I told my girlfriend at the time, you know what? I need to go fix this. I need to go fix this. So I went up to George and I said, hey, George, we need to fix this because someday people are going to ask us to work together. And it's going to happen because of who we are. We need to squash this. And then his wife was like, fuck you. You know what you did. You know who you are. And then he grabbed my shirt and I looked at him and I said, do you really want to do this here? Because we were upstairs in the balcony.
Yeah.
And he let me go and I walked away. And at that point, I was like, okay, I tried. here's their